Because we are busy raising our children, working and paying bills to make ends meet, therefore learning the Black liberating truth that frees our mind is not a high priority on our list of things to do. And this is by deliberate design. But nonetheless, those of us who know the truth must teach it. African proverb. If people are born ignorant, to parents that are ignorant, in a society that is ignorant, lives a life of ignorance, then ignorance becomes their norm. Thus, indoctrination can be called education. The villains throughout history can be called the heroes. Their innocent victims can be called savages. A false god can be called the one and only true God, and all lies can be called truths. Because these people never knew the truth, their minds were actually never their own. Their minds are owned and controlled by the creators of the lies they've been misled to believe. Unfortunately, to our own detriment, this is the hidden reality of what has been done to we Africans throughout the diaspora. We have been stripped of our true history, identity, culture, and spiritual systems, and have instead been indoctrinated with many white mental enslaving lies. Millions of our people live their entire lives never knowing any truths. All that they believe are mental enslaving lies that were brutally indoctrinated into the minds of our enslaved and colonized ancestors, and then subsequently passed down to us. Therefore, millions of our people goes from their cradles to their graves, having lived their entire lives while their minds were never truly their own. Furthermore, many of our people are so mentally enslaved that they fight fiercely against those of us who try to free their minds. The most mentally enslaved one amongst us are the ones that are now self-identifying by the N-word, and those that worships the false god of our ungodly oppressors. Because when Black people self-identify by the N-word and worship the false god of our ungodly enslavers, these combined indoctrinations subliminally embeds a mentally enslaved value system into the collective subconscious minds of the Black masses that facilitates the white society's long-term oppression of us. It's no strange occurrence that we've been made to revere most the ideologies that mentally enslaves us most. White social engineering science did this to us because the mental change, the most difficult change to separate people from, are those that have been made to revere most. The absolute fact is that the most mentally enslaved one amongst us are the ones that are self-identified by the N-word and that worships the false god of our ungodly enslavers. And as long as Black people continue to do these noted practices, we will remain mentally enslaved by the white oppressors. I will quantify this statement with facts. First, here's the mental enslaving true reason why they socially engineered millions of us to now self-identify ourselves by the N-word. To subjugate and control a large targeted population, the first step is to neutralize their alpha males, aka those possessing warrior spirits. These are the males that are psychologically wired to protect their families and their communities. White social scientists neutralized the Black alpha males by socially engineering millions to self-identify themselves by the N-word. They did this because words, when repeated often enough, have immense power over the subconscious mind. Repeated words shapes our thoughts, and our thoughts held long enough by words repeated often enough becomes a belief. A belief then becomes our biology. We psychologically become the words that we repeatedly call ourselves. This is why women that proclaim themselves as being bitches often become stubbornly unreasonable. It's also why men that proclaim themselves as being thugs are more likely to engage in a fight than to avoid one. Words put a spell upon the subconscious mind. We in fact function based upon the words that we assign to ourselves. It's a psychological phenomenon that white social scientists have thoroughly studied. By conditioning us to repeatedly call ourselves by the N-word, this psychology conditions us to perceive ourselves through a false, inherent, subordinate, and inferior identity that aids the white society in maintaining its social dominance over us. White social scientists describe what they've done to black people as merely instilling a value system into the collective minds of the black masses that makes us adhere to the authority and the existing infrastructure of the white dominant society. When we call each other by the N-word, we also dehumanize each other. This makes it psychologically easier to mistreat each other. It's a fact that the military has known for a very long time. During the Korean and Vietnam War, to ease the American soldiers' anxieties about torturing and killing those Asian soldiers, they were taught to refer to them by derogatory Asian term. This dehumanized them and made it easier to kill and torture them. This is actually what has been done to we African Americans. This was happening when we called each other by the N-word. Case, point, and proof. Have you ever closely listened whenever a black man speaks of a previous fight against another black man? As he presents the detail of the fight, he will say, I hit that, and I kicked that, and I shot that, and I stomped that, and et cetera, et cetera. The N is for the N-word, of course. The N-word is actually being used to dehumanize the other black man. If you then ask the speaker to retell the details of the fight, using the other black person's name or by replacing the N-word with the terms my brother, the speaker will then will have to psychologically struggle to retell the story. The more brutal that his behavior was, the more difficult it becomes to retell the story without using the dehumanizing word of the N-word. The speaker may even become angry for being asked to retell the story without using the N-word to dehumanize his victim. When we call others by the N-word, we dehumanize each other. This makes it easier to mistreat and even unalive each other. The white-controlled prison industry is filled with black men that call themselves and call each other by the N-word. In fact, the majority of black felons does use the N-word. White social engineering scientists deliberately program millions of African-American men to do so to achieve this ultimate agenda. White oppressive forces have placed an elaborate negative spell upon the subconscious minds of millions of African-American men with the N-word. Not all wars are fought on the battlefield. Most are fought in the mind. It's a fact that most of us must learn in order to emancipate our minds from white mental slavery. Now I will quantify my opening statement of how worshiping the false god of our ungodly oppressors also mentally enslaves us. The Bible was actually the first tool used to socialize the minds of black people to think in ways benefiting the white society. The white enslavers and colonizers were not trying to save African souls when they converted them into Christians. This is an irrefutable fact because they perceived that Africans had no souls and that heaven was for whites only. In fact, the early enslavers and colonizers believed that the thought of an African entering heaven was as ridiculous as a dog doing so. This is a fact. When we logically looked at facts as they were, we can say with great certainty that the white enslavers and colonizers' conversion of Africans into Christians had absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with saving the souls of Africans. There was another self-serving reason why those racists, enslavers, and colonizers put their time and energy into converting Africans, a people they otherwise treated so brutally, into Christians. The true reason was to indoctrinate the belief of a white God into their minds. When the Africans were taught through Christianity to worship a white Jesus as the Messiah, Son of God, this logically concluded the presumption that if the Son of God is white, then therefore accordingly God is white. The belief of a white God, the belief that God, the greatest entity in the universe, is white, produces a profound adoration towards whiteness within the subconscious minds of the African. This subconsciously happens without many of us even realizing it. This profound adoration towards whiteness is then transferred and transposed on a subconscious level towards upon the white race. This made the Africans more subservient and loyal to their white enslavers and their white colonizers. The effect of that brainwashing scheme implemented hundreds of years ago has been left uncorrected and unremoved for generations. It still continues upon the minds of millions of black people today. It is the reason why you can presently visit many black churches and find its walls stubbornly adorned with pictures of only white deities. Many black people are offended when they see pictures of a Jesus painted black. Furthermore, through Christianity, millions of black people have been brainwashed to believe that all the wrongs that the white society have done to us throughout history have been washed away clean by the blood of a fictional Jesus. Black people were also forced to become Christians, and then its doctrine was used to compel black people as good Christians to forgive the white society for all the brutalities they inflicted upon us throughout history. Note, the white society never actually repented for their evil deeds committed against black people. They merely insisted that black people as good Christians forgive them as their doctrine dictates. Furthermore, by teaching black people that a white God sent down his white son to earth to die for us, literally makes millions of black people feel indebted to the white society. Christianity has proven itself as being one of history's most successful propaganda tools used for mentally enslaving black people. Black people are also being mentally enslaved by unrelenting media subliminal programming. It's no strange coincidence that countless numbers of black people are now self-hating, perceives ourselves as being our own worst enemies, and reveres Caucasians in spite of a brutally horrific history of the contrary. This mindset among black people is too widespread to be coincidental, and it's a mind spread that clearly benefits the white society. It's always by deliberate design whenever the oppressed thinks and behaves in ways that serve the white society. This mindset is the deliberate result of media social engineering of the collective minds of black people through unrelenting media subliminal programming. The white media's unrelenting negative depiction of black people that amplifies the negative to the point that it distorts our reality is much more than just biased media reporting. It is actually a black racially demoralizing, divide and rule psychological warfare system. Because white people controls black statistics, narratives, our media images, this factor allows them to negatively shape how we perceive ourselves. More specifically, allow them to shift our collective aggressions away from the white society and redirect it towards ourselves, creating self-contemptuous thoughts among the black population that serves and protects the interests of the white society. The basis of this concept of warfare works by effective subconscious minds of the black population through unrelenting, demoralizing propaganda. Its weapon is the demoralizing messages that it carries and the way that it adversely affects the black population in terms of our behavior and our unity. This propaganda campaign is deployed like a massive media marketing campaign that constantly subjects the black population to receiving only the fraudulent and worst narratives about ourselves. Within this system, fraudulent, black racially demoralizing, and black racially devaluing propaganda is being pumped unrelentingly into the unsuspecting minds of the black population without being challenged nor counterbalanced by an equal amount of positive black racially affirming information. With time being unable to refute nor confirm those constant negative messages being told about ourselves, many within the black population grow weary and will eventually come to accept those negative assessments of us. And many of us internalize it. The constant negative information about ourselves makes many Black people become self-hating. It divides our ranks, it demoralizes us, and it makes us more compliant with white dominance over our lives. It's a brainwashing system that utilizes the immense power that shame has upon the human mind to mentally enslave Black people. No group can be constantly subjected to receiving only the fraudulent worst narratives about themselves and not be adversely affected. It is time to wake up to our reality. It is time to wake up to our reality. One love and peace.